Okay, it looks like we're all gathered, so I'll invite Trevor to come up. And you can just launch into the ceremony.
Sambado garawa sorajo patho abho kaso papaja na idang sukarang agarang achawasata ekanta pali punnang ekanta pali sudhang sankalikitang brahmachariyang charitung yang nuna hangke samasung ohare twa kasayani watani achadetwa agarasama anagariyang papajeyang. The household life is cramped and dusty. The homeless life is free as air. It is not easy living the household life, to live the fully perfected holy life, purified and polished like a conch shell. Suppose I were to shave off my hair and beard, don the robes of a Buddhist monastic, and go forth from the household life into homelessness.
You nailed it that time. Okay. So, just to let everybody know what just happened there, that was a request both in Pali and English. That English was the translation of the Pali that Trevor, our Anagārika ordination candidate, chanted. And so he's offered some whites here, which I will now give to him, and he will go and put them on. Āsī, could you put this out? So Anagārika means homeless one, so one without a home. So even though we do have good facilities here, when you go forth into this first level of ordination, of wearing white, then you are considered homeless. And we have very good meditation facilities and so on, but still considered to not have a fixed home. And this is a nice thing to do to begin our Āsāḻha Pūjā ceremonies with an Anagārika ordination, going forth. So even though in the English translation of that Pali chant, Trevor is mentioned to be shave off my hair and beard, don the robes of a Buddhist monastic, and go forth from the household life into homelessness, and not quite putting on the robes of a Buddhist monastic just yet, but there is that intention. The way it progresses here is you go for 1 year, more or less, wearing white, following the 8 precepts, the 8 Renunciate Precepts, and doing things such as service, working in the kitchen, and helping look after the monastery. The Anagārika, in the 8 precepts, the Anagārika can still use money, so they also help out with the financial end of things in the monastery. Once one takes on the 10 precepts or the novice ordination, which is another year, then one gives up the use of money, being able to accept or use money or have any control over money. So that's a big step that happens after the 1 year of Anagārika ordination. So it's a sense of trying it out and trying out the lifestyle of the living in the monastery, seeing if it is conducive to a deepening of well-being and contentment. And it's always kind of mysterious what draws people to Buddhist monasticism. I think for a lot of people, I can speak for myself as well, it's kind of like following a scent, following a good scent, following a scent of virtue. And I don't know exactly why I had so much faith come up when I first read Lumpur Cha's teachings and how that eventually led me here into ordination. I think it's very similar for everybody, that there's something to it. Can't quite put your finger on it, but there's something good here. Also like to welcome Trevor's mother and sister who've come here this evening, and his nephew. I forgot his name already. Tyler? Huh? Tucker. I knew it was a T. Okay. There's a lot that happens at this time of year too. So tomorrow is the formal entering of the Rains Retreat, which is a big deal for Theravadan Buddhist monastics. And it's really upheld in Thailand as an annual tradition. And in Southeast Asia, this would be the beginning of the monsoon season, so it would be very humid, raining. And the Buddha put this in place, this Rains Retreat, and that there's 3 months where the monks don't go out so much, they don't travel away from the monastery. The roads would be very muddy, and it'd be difficult to travel. And so unless there's a suitable reason, for example, giving a teaching, or one's family members fall ill, one has to go help look after them. There's these various reasons why we can take sataha, or 6-day leave, during the Rains Retreat period. So of course here it's summertime, so it's not the monsoon season here in California. We still observe it though. There's a lot of our rules in the Vinaya, or the Buddhist monks' discipline, that we still observe during this Rains Retreat period. Our Rains Retreat is actually in the winter time, our actual rainy season time. We call that the winter retreat. So for us, January, February, March is when we really go into deeper retreat and close the monastery to visitors. There can still be day visitors, but we don't have overnight visitors during the winter retreat period. So that's really our true Rains Retreat period. But there's all these disciplinary observances, Vinaya observances that occur for this particular period of time. So we still observe those, and of course ending with a katina. There's a katina ceremony, or a cloth offering ceremony, that is allowed to happen at the end of the Rains Retreat period. And so now Trevor has put on his whites and look at a crash course in wearing them, trying to keep them on, trying to keep them clean. It's a good mindfulness practice. I'll be formally requesting the 8 precepts. Offer the tree.
Aham bante ti saranena saha atha silani yachami dutiyam pi aham bante ti saranena saha atha silani yachami tatiyam pi aham bante ti saranena saha atha silani yachami.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato sama sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dhammang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Dutiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi buddhaṃ saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi dhammang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Tatiyampi sanghang saranang gacchami.
Ti sarana kamanang nititang.
Amapante.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Panatipata veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking the life of any living creature.
Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Adinadana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
I undertake the precept to refrain from taking that which is not given.
Abrahmacharya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Brahmacharya veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity.
I undertake the precept to refrain from any intentional sexual activity.
Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Musavada veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying.
Sura meraya maja pamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Sura meraya maja pamadatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
I undertake the precept to refrain from consuming intoxicating drink and drugs which lead to carelessness.
Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Vikala bhojana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate times.
I undertake the precept to refrain from eating at inappropriate times.
Nacha gita varita visukkadasana mala ganda vilepana dharana mandana vibhusanatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Nacha gita vadita visukkadasana malaganda vilepana dharana mandana vibhusanatana veramani sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from entertainment, beautification, and adornment.
I undertake the precept to refrain from beautification,
Entertainment.
entertainment, and adornment.
Ujjasayana mahasayana Veramani Sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
Ujjasayana mahasayana Veramani Sikkhapadang samadhiyami.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high or luxurious sleeping place.
I undertake the precept to refrain from lying on a high or luxurious sleeping place.
Imani yata sikkhapadani samadhiyami.
Imani yata sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani yata sikkhapadani samadhiyami. Imani yata sikkhapadani samadhiyami.
Imani yata sikkhapadani silena sugating yanti silena bhoga sampada silena nibbuteng yanti tasama silang visota ye.
Sadhu Pante.
Sit and puppy up. Okay, welcome to the whites. Now at this time it's traditional to go over what you just did, the refuges and precepts. So you've taken refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, starting with Namo Tassa 3 times, the homage to the Buddha and recollection of the Buddha's awakening and how that's possible for each of us as individuals. And then refuge in Buddha Dhamma Sangha, refuge in Buddha being the historical Buddha who lived about 2,600 years ago, but also refuge in awareness, the inner Buddha, so taking refuge in intuitive awareness. Dhamma, the teaching that the Buddha taught, but internally the Dhamma is just the truth of the way things are. And the Sangha, refuge in Sangha, is the Buddha's disciples, but also we can think of it as virtue, refuge in virtue. And the whites that you're wearing and the shaved head is just a symbol of being a precept keeper. So that's what it's symbolic of. It's always a reminder of that. The going through each of the precepts in brief, the first precept, the refraining from killing, so that refers to intentional killing. So if you step on an ant or something like that, it doesn't break the precept if it's accidental. But we do cultivate more mindfulness around things like mosquitoes or biting flies. We don't just slap them. We gently push them away. And we develop mindfulness around that. We don't intentionally take life of any living being. Then there's the refraining from taking what is not given. So anytime we want something, or if we see something that doesn't belong to us, we stop ourselves and say, oh, that's, I have to ask about that, or it's just putting a check on that sense of covetousness in the mind. It's a very good mental training to refrain from taking what is not given. Also things like, as an Anagārika or being a steward of the monastery stores or the monastery money, then being careful and circumspect around those things, around the kitchen and so on. The third precept, that's the refraining from any intentional sexual activity. This is what we call the brahmacharya, or the celibacy. So we refrain from any kind of sexual activity or gratification, whether it's in public or private, and so we're very transparent in our actions. And this is very difficult at first to do, but if we reflect on it, and once we go for a bit longer, it does get a little bit easier. And so with any of these precepts, if there's ever an infraction, it's just purified through just letting a senior monk know, letting myself or any other senior monk know. And then the fourth precept is refraining from lying. So just that sense of looking and keeping a sense of honesty and integrity in our speech and in our actions. There's the fifth precept, which is refraining from intoxicants. So specifically the wording of that rule it has to do with alcohol. Sura meraya, it's fermented wine and liquor and spirits, but we extend it by what we call the great standards. We extend that to use of other drugs in the monastery, mind-altering substances, certain things that are allowed in this monastery, like coffee and tea. We do allow those things. So whatever is considered allowable here, that is allowable for you. And then those are the first 5 precepts. So like, as you know, for lay people, the third precept is not necessarily celibacy, it's just refraining from sexual misconduct. But because you're taking on the 8 precepts of the Renunciate, the third precept does become celibacy. And for anybody else who is curious about the third precept for lay people, that would be refraining from sexual misconduct, which would be honesty and integrity in our relationships, not cheating on one's partner, and so on. So those are the first 5 precepts, and then we add on 3 more for the 8, which is the Renunciate Precepts. That's the Vikala Bhojana, or not eating at the wrong time. So the right time is dawn, so when it starts to get light outside. Dawn until midday is the allowable time. Right now we have the cutoff is 1 p.m. We just make it a arbitrary time at this time of year, so to not consume food after 1 p.m. unless it's something that's allowed in the afternoon, such as juice or the monastic version of allowables. And the 7th precept, refraining from entertainment, beautification, and adornment. This is allowing the mind to focus a bit more on the meditation practice. And we have very few distractions already here in the monastery, and so refraining from watching TV. We do have computer use, which is allowable in a limited way for junior members of the community, but even with that, being circumspect and careful and trying to not use it as a distraction. We do have a library with Dhamma books and things like study, Pali study, these kind of things are allowable, but we do try to refrain from entertainment. Beautification and adornment. Beautification is, although the robes of an Anagārika or a novice or a bhikkhu do beautify you in a sense of being a precept keeper, we refrain from like wearing cologne and trying to make ourselves attractive or alluring. That's probably not going to be an issue. And adornment, we take out our nose rings and our earrings and our lip rings and everything else, and if we have them. Also, that doesn't seem to be an issue in this case. The 8th precept is refraining from lying in a high or luxurious sleeping place, so we normally just sleep very simply, a mat on the floor. Some people will use a yoga mat, some will use a thermarest. The monastic rule is to not have a bed with legs higher than 8 finger breadths, which is about 8 inches. So if it's a bed, it's kept fairly low to the ground, and so it's kept very simple. One can also think of it as not overindulging in sleep. That's another interpretation of that particular rule. So with those 8 monastic Renunciate Precepts, you enter what I like to think of as the first gate of ordination. The Anagārika ordination is the first gate of ordination. There's that 1 year of Anagārika ordination. Second gate would be the samanera or the novice ordination. And the third gate would be the bhikkhu ordination. So that's the precepts in brief, and if you ever transgress them, it's not the end of the world, but you make it known, and then retaking the precepts, then you keep moving on from there. And so at this time, it'll be the final part of the ceremony. I'll invite you to formally ask for dependence, and you can begin with that.
Acharyo me pante hohi, ayasamato nisaya vachami. Acharyo me pante hohi, Ayasamato nisaya vachami. Acharyo me pante hohi. Ayasamato nisaya vachami.
Opaikang.
Satu pante.
Pati rupang.
Satu pante.
Pasadikena sampadehi.
Satu pante. Ajattage dani tero. My hung baro. Ahampi tera sabaro. Ajattage dani tero. My hung baro. Ahampi tera sabaro. Ajattage dani tero. My hung baro. Ahampi tera sabaro.
Okay, you can sit comfortably again. So that was the formal taking of dependence, also known as nisaya. You can put your hands up. And the nisaya begins with the chanting of Acharyo me bante hohi. Ayasmato nisaya wachami. So, Venerable Sir, may you be my teacher. May you consider me as your disciple. May you be my teacher. So that's in this ceremony that's been formally taken on myself, but in this community it's really taken on the whole community. So for myself, then I accept you in terms of being able to teach you, but also the whole community, Longpo Pasano and everybody else, the other Ajahns, and also even the other Anagārikas and Samaneras, junior monks. You'll be learning a lot in the next few days. You'll get a crash course in all things monastic, and you get invited into just practicalities. You're going to be eating out of a bowl. You don't get to easily go back for seconds with the meal. You'll be engaging in bowl washing, learning about looking after the monks in a more personal way. You get to make use of the MUB building, the monks' utility building up above, and so you're much more sort of in the fold when you take on the Anagārika ordination. And the second part of the chant, Ajattage dani tero maihang baro ahampi tera sabaro, that means I am now the burden of the Venerable One or the Elder, and also the Elder is my burden. So it's like that mutual helping out. So you might be helping us out in various ways and as an Anagārika, but also we'll be helping you out in various ways by helping you to learn the ropes of the monastic form and learn about the teachings in a deeper way, learn about the training in a deeper way, and ultimately start that path, the long road to ultimately ending suffering. And this is the beginning of the path. So as this is Āsāḻha Pūjā, I'll now just invite you to, if you had any offerings for Longpo Pasano, then you could offer them to him at this time, pay respects to him, and then once you do that, you can go to the seat we've set up for you over by Anagārika Justin. Yeah, well, that can go to his. This can go away. Maybe, yeah, now is fine. Yeah. Much appreciated. This all-night vigil is brought to you by Black Oak Coffee Roasters. Okay.